I want to talk just a little bit about the book of Job and where Job comes from, where he fits in the timeline of biblical history. And a lot of people refer to Job as being the oldest book in the Bible, and that's possible. One of the things that will help fit this into context is understanding who Job was. So the book of Job describes him as being the greatest man in the East. Right? So Job was not just a farmer who happened to get ahead on a few things. In fact, the book of Job talks about people revering him like a king, and that Job was clearly a man of prominence. So not just wealthy, not just a little blessed, but Job was a leader, chief among his people, the Bible even says. And so Job was a leader of that region. Now, the Bible says he comes from Uz. So Uz kind of covers both the land at different times of Edom and Moab. Right? And so a couple of interesting side notes, right, that I'm just kind of throw out there. Some people refer to Job as being contemporary with Abraham, right? So we probably throw that out because Eliphaz, one of his friends, is called Eliphaz the Temanite, right? So Temanite comes from Teman, which is Esau's son, right? And so one of Job's friends was a son came from the tribe, rather, of one of Esau's sons. And so that would clearly put then Job after the time of not only Abraham, but then also Isaac, and then Jacob and Esau also. A couple other things. The Septuagint has an interesting note at the end of the book of Job that says that he was also from the line of Esau, and that he was the fifth from Abraham. And so take it for what it's worth. It's not in our Hebrew English versions, but the Septuagint has a lot of credibility also. It is the version of the Bible that is most frequently quoted by the disciples, right? And so it is kind of interesting. It's not totally secular material. I mean, it is the Bible that the disciples used quite frequently. And in its version of Job, it ends by explaining that Job was from the line of Esau. And then one other kind of interesting kind of side note is that one of the pharaohs named Sostres III, he was famous for a lot of things, but one of the things that we have found from him is this stone where he has inscribed curses on various regions, right, and the leaders of those regions. And so when he gets to the area over there, and he references it as the region of Moab, which Uz kind of covers both of those areas. So it's possible that he is referring to that same area that Job is from. But when he curses the leader of that region, he gives him the name Iabam, which is the Hebrew equivalent of Iabam. Iabam is the Egyptian name. The Hebrew equivalent is Job. And so it is kind of interesting that during Sostres III's reign, he references a leader from that region over there by the name of Job, and he curses him. And then just a side note that I'll throw out, I don't have time to get into it too much, but the implication of Sostres III cursing the leader of the Moabite region is that whether it's Moab or Esau, both of those are descendants from Abraham forward, right? The Edomites from Esau's line and the Moabites from Lot's family. Both of them, though, are post-Abraham's time. And I think it's kind of interesting, and maybe in some other videos I might shed some more light on this, but our chronology, that often it comes under so much question, right? The biblical dating. How come we've never found anything from Moses? And how come the Battle of Jericho is off by about 300 years? And how come we haven't been able to figure out which Pharaoh really belongs to the time of the Exodus? A lot of those issues, and maybe we'll do a video on this, stem from problems with the Egyptian dating system. That all other archaeologists use the Egyptian dating system as the fundamental cornerstone, and they base everything else off of that. Problem is, if there's any issues with the Egyptian chronology, then it throws off everything else. And so they will tell you that it is rock solid, with no issues whatsoever in their dating system, but they've revised it in the last 200 years, 9 times. So that's not as stable as they would push. There have been many changes in their chronology and in their dating system. So I believe, and I could show this, that many of the Egyptian problems with their chronology have then seeped into our understanding of which Pharaoh fits with Moses. So the current dating of Sostres III is 1850, which would put him way before Moses. And if that is correct, he would have to have been at the same time as Abraham. The trouble with that is he curses the leader of Moab, right? And so if he's reigning as Pharaoh during the time of Abraham, there is no nation of Moab. And so it's clear that their dating system is off by almost 300 years. And I can prove it and show you ways that how that transpired. But this is an archaeological piece to the puzzle that shouldn't be ignored. That a Pharaoh that they are saying that lived at the same time as Moses, we have found something from him that curses the nation of Moab, right? So whether that is the Job of the Bible or not is one thing. The other interesting piece is the fact that it really wrecks up and disproves the Egyptian chronology, because Moab would not have been a nation for a few hundred years after the time of Abraham and Lot. And so if we have an Egyptian Pharaoh cursing Moab, he can't be from 1850, the time of Abraham that they say. And so there's a couple of neat things there. One, that it's possible that this Job that he's cursing is the biblical Job, because that's the same area. The other neat thing is that it clearly shows that there's some issues with the Egyptian chronology, which opens the door for us to realign some things in terms of which pharaohs go with which Exodus events.